السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is another live session of gathering subtleties. The same unannounced way of going live on YouTube, as I think some of you might understand from some of the previous sessions. This is the new style I prefer now, especially late at night, maybe weekdays, so that we do not have a lot of unnecessary, unwanted noise. As I told you before in the last stream, I wanted to talk about something concerning Al-Azhar al-Sharif, and I brought with me today a book that has been published by Majlis Hukama al-Muslimin, or the Muslim Council of Elders, and this is something I think it's branched from Al-Azhar al-Sharif, if I'm not mistaken, and it has Mashayikhat al-Azhar al-Sharif on it. Yes, Islamic Culture Book Series number 6. And usually you find this in the book fair, and I think this is a very good book, and it has an Arabic and an English title with an English introduction, and maybe a few words, yes, that give you an idea what this council is and what these things are, and an introduction to the book in English, even though the Arabic introduction is more, let's say, comprehensive than the English one, but it helps still, and it is the Azharite curriculum telltale manual, approved textbook list at Al-Azhar al-Sharif, with the foreword by Imam al-Akbar Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad Tayyib, Hafidhahullah. I studied at Al-Azhar al-Sharif. Most of my studying years I spent in Al-Azhar al-Sharif in the masjid and not in the university. So I do not have a degree from Al-Azhar al-Sharif. I never identify as an Azhari for reasons known to the students who study with me, and I usually say politely that this is an honor that I do not claim for a lot of reasons that we should not discuss now. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. مرحبا وأهلا بكم جميعا مشايخ الأكارم. Today I have a few things that I want to discuss, but firstly, let's highlight some things in the introduction. I will show you the introduction now. Maybe you can take like a screenshot of the introduction. You can read it later, and I hope this does not violate anything. Some things in the introduction, the English introduction, to just understand what this is, to have an idea what we should expect in there. He says, or it says, we are thus pleased to introduce this manual to the readers. These books have been taught or studied at Al-Azhar al-Sharif for a long time over its long history. Yeah. So serving several cultural and intellectual fields. Yes, so this is an important detail, because these books are studied and taught there. And I hope you remind this. I'm not sure if we will cover everything in one live stream, but I hope you remember this piece of information later. These are supposed to be books studied and taught in Al Azhar Al Sharif. Then you have the forward of Shaykh Al Azhar Al Sharif. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Radiyallahu anhu. He says, I will read this part to you in Arabic because it's not translated into English, and I will try to translate it into English, or explain the main points there very quickly. He speaks about the madhahib and the differences between al-madhahib, and he started with al-fiqh, the differences between al-madhahib, and how al-Azhar Sharif embraces all that, and how al-Hanbali would know how to pray behind the Shafi'i without invalidating his without the prayer being invalid, even when a black dog passes. يعني in front of the Shafi'i Imam. These beautiful things. However, it comes to the section of Al-Aqid, and I think this is the beginning of our discussion. And later we will discuss Al-Fiqh, the fiqh section of this book. In the Aqidah section, he says, ويترسخ هذا المنهج أيضا في مقرر العقيدة وعلم الكلام ودراسة مذاهب المتكلمين من معتزلة وأشاعرة وماتريدية وجهمية وغيرها، دراسة علمية موضوعية لا يفرض فيها مذهب بعينه على الطالب يعتنقه منذ طفولته ويلقنه على أنه المذهب الوحيد المتكفل ببيان عقيدة التوحيد، وأن غيره من المذاهب الإسلامية الأخرى التي درجت عليها جماهير الأمة الإسلامية 15 قرنا من الزمان مذاهب فاسدة، وأن الداعين إليها والمتمذهبين بها إما فساق ضالون أو مشركون تستباح دماؤهم وأموالهم وأعراضهم. Then he continues: فقد كنا ندرس مذاهب علماء الكلام من معتزلة وأشاعرة وماتريدية وغيرها دراسة علمية نقدية حرة لا يوجه فيها الطالب نحو مذهب معين، ومنا من كان يدافع عن مقولات أهل الاعتزال، ومنا من كان يدافع عن الأشاعرة، ومنا من كان يستحسن نظريات هنا وهناك. Actually, the rest of this part is also very important. Yet I just need to explain this first. He says that this approach of Al-Azhar Sharif, well established in the curriculum of Al-Aqidah, or Tawheed, and Al-Aqidah and Kalam, speculative theology. Yes. He says, where the study of the aqaid, or the doctrines of the Mu'tazila, the Ash'ariyya, the Maturidiyya, Al-Jahmiyya, and others, I know what might be said about not mentioning Ashab al-Hadith, or people of Hadith, or Al-Hanabila, or Al-Athariyya, or the true Salafiyya, and let's not use the Salafiyya name. Yes, I know what might be said there, but this is very strange. You know, Al-Jahmiyya are mentioned. Al-Jahmiyya are mentioned. يعني المعتزلة, you might mention them, and some people will tell you, no, we respect al-Mu'tazila and the great service. Yes, and this is true to some extent. The great service of al-Mu'tazila, how they responded to a lot of philosophers. And, yeah, sure, certain aspects, definitely. Their practice of philosophy and speculative theology against philosophers and malahida, atheists and other groups. Yeah, we know this. But you mentioned al-Jahmiyya, and and after that you just say something like وغيرها, وغيرها, which means and others and other madhahib. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you as well. Jazakumullah, thank you. Like, sure, okay. All these madhab are studied in an objective academic manner. No single madhab or school is imposed on the student to adopt from childhood. I'm not sure. I do not think so. I think we present the Ash'ari madhab as the true madhab that should be studied and that should be believed in. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, especially if we are talking about childhood. So the first thing that he reads as a child, the student, or she reads as a child, is Al-Khalid al-Bahiyya and some of its explanations. And if you say Al-Khalid al-Bahiyya is not really speculative theology and does not represent the Ash'ari school, I would definitely disagree. Yeah, maybe it's not ilm al-kalam, but it represents the Ash'ari school. And not in the way that Lumat al-I'tiqad represents the Ash'ari school. Because Lumat al-I'tiqad will never represent the Ash'ari school. And anyone who would say something like this, Ibn Qudama was Ash'ari, you wouldn't even be able to say it. Yes? But some people would like to say, yeah, what are al-Hanabila after all? They are Ash'ariyya. And this comes from two directions. Al-Wahhabiyya would say so. At the end of the day, there is no difference between these new Hanabila or new Hanbali approach, yes, and the Ash'ari approach. And Al-Ash'ariyya would say, yeah, at the end of the day, these Fudala al-Hanabila, yani the virtuous ones among Hanabila, because we classify Hanabila into virtuous and not sure what, yes. They are like us, and at the end of the day, it's one method, and we disagree with both groups, yes. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. Thank you. Ya Shaykh Aman Hussein. Hafizakum. Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khairan. Can you make a video on Hanbali's praising Ash'aris? I'm not sure about that. Yeah. I do not want to make things unnecessarily difficult. A lot of Hanabila praised a lot of Al-Ash'ariyya. The issue is, are they praising them for their Ash'ari faith or Ash'ari aqidah? Yani, when for instance, let's bring a Hanbali scholar who praised his Shaykh, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani radiyallahu anhu. Does he praise his Ash'ariyya or does he praise him? If you want to talk about praising the Ash'ari madhab, this might be very rare among the Hanabila, unless we are talking about a man who's in fiqh, Hanbali, in fiqh, yet subscribing to the majority of the Ash'ari positions in al-aqaid, and more importantly, subscribing to the permissibility of speculative theology in usul al-din. Yes, I think you might find that this person is praising al-Ash'ari. Yes, let me continue. I welcome questions if you want to ask whatever. No fatawi, as I said before. I think you understand this now. But let me continue this part here, and I will discuss whatever you want. If you want to leave your questions now in the comments, and I will return to them later. Yes. Nothing to adopt from childhood, he said. Hafizahullah, Shaykh. Nor is any or any doctrine, any one doctrine presented as the exclusive representative of Tawheed to the exclusion of other Islamic schools or madhahib. Yes, which the vast majority of the Muslim Ummah have followed for 15 centuries. In other words, I can't just say that this is the right aqidah while the other madhahib are wrong, even though the vast majority of the Ummah have followed these madhahib. So the vast majority of the Ummah does not include the Hanabila. I think the Hanabila. What is the percentage of people who followed the Jahmi madhab? If or when compared with the number of people who followed the Athari and Hanbali Aqeedah. It has to be a miracle then that the Hanbali Aqeedah survived. Yes. I am Hanbali. My shuyukh claim to be Hanabila in Aqaid, and I know non-Hanbali in fiqh who claim to be Hanabila in Aqaid and who acknowledge, sometimes secretly or privately, yes, acknowledge, yeah, that yes, this is a proper madhab that can be studied, that can be taught. Yeah. So yeah, this is very strange. He says, he continues, it's not presented, um, it's not presented as though all other doctrines are corrupt, nor are their followers deemed sinners, deviant, um, whose blood and wealth and honor are to be violated. Rather, we studied the doctrines of the scholars of these schools, al-Mu'tazila, al-Ash'ariyya, al-Maturidiyya, and others, this might include us, fortunately, in a free, critical, and scholarly fashion, without guiding the student towards one particular school. Uh, Listen, Ya Mashaykh, if you are Ash'ari, this necessitates that al-Jahmi is a deviant. Actually, it necessitates that the Mu'tazili is a mubtada, innovator. Yes? I'm not sure about this tolerance here. I'm not sure about this. Alhamdulillah, we do not have a lot of Mu'tazila and Jahmiyyah nowadays, so that we are not accused politically of discriminating against a group or a minority. Yes. And I think we are being discriminated against anyway, but this is another topic for another time. And calling someone mubtada, deviant, even kafir, can never lead to shedding this person's blood unless a judge summons this person. Without a judge, nothing can be done about people's money or wealth, about people's lives, about people's families. Nothing can be done without a judge. If you kill someone whom you consider a kafir, he says he's Jahmi. Al-Jahmi, Imam Ahmad said Al-Jahmi is kafir. This is, and even then, this does not necessarily mean that when you see a Jahmi and he says, I am a Jahmi, you call him a kafir, unless he tells you, for instance, Al-Quran is created. For instance, if a person says Al-Quran is created and then you explain to him that it's not created and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Al-Quran, that you show him the evidence from Al-Quran, then this person can be called kafir by a man of al-ilm, by a scholar. And this will be his own aqidah in his heart, that this man is a kafir. Yes. He will not require the rest of the ummah to call him a kafir. This is optional. And even then, he will not require them. He will explain to them that this deviant says that the Quran is created. If he can, if he wills, if he sees that this is amrun bil ma'ruf or nahyin anil munkar, enjoining good or forbidding evil. Yes. And when it comes to shedding people's blood or killing them, you can't do this actually. This requires the authority of al-hakim, the authority of the ruler / judge. 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 So, or hence, I can study and know that this person is a deviant without actually touching him. Ajib, ajib. Hmm. Now I'm even more worried about the fact that we have not mentioned that there might be tolerance towards Al Jahmiyyah or for Al Jahmiyyah, but not for Al Hanabir. Yes, this is strange. Hmm. Um, then in the other part, he says, among us were those who defended the positions of al-Mu'tazil, others who supported the Ash'ari, and some who favored certain theories from here and there. I read, I read something that an Ash'ari wrote. This man died, rahimahullah, and he was mocking, making fun of the Hanbali madhab by saying the Hanabila, their contribution to usul al-din is like their contribution to usul al-fiqh. And he said something like superficial or empty or something like this. Because he has never been trained to read books written in any language other than this language of al-Azhariya slash philosophers slash scholars of speculative theology slash people who consider Aristotelian logic the criterion of knowledge slash so many other things. He has never been trained to read books written in proper Arabic language, presenting essential ideas profoundly, eloquently, without using this so-called criterion of knowledge in definitions and in presentation. Yes. So he finds this very strange, hence their contribution to knowledge in general is superficial. To knowledge in general, especially these fields of usul al-fiqh wa usul al-din. Yes. And I think this is the same. This could be the same perspective. I wish one day Shaykh would explain these things to us. I think this is the exact same perspective that yeah, at the end of the day, you do not really have contribution. Yani these texts, these short mutun that you authored, they are short mutun that speak about certain topics in general. But you see, our books, the systematic way, the organization, the definitions, the logical definitions, al-hudud, and and the introductions, and studying the purpose, and studying al-wadi', the person who invented, or the person who came up with the discipline, or the person who made it a discipline, and studying the purpose, and studying the sources of this discipline, studying these things. Unless you study in this manner, dictated by certain institutions for very good purposes, then it's not ilm. To be honest, when I was younger, I found it difficult to read some books of al-aqaid written by our scholars because I'm not trained to read books written in this manner. Mm. It's like he was writing the closest um, analogy would be as if he's writing an essay. Yes, and I used to read um, very concise, short, focused mutun or their explanations written in the same manner. Yes, respecting the terminology of scholars of al-kalam and the terminology of logicians most of the time. But for a person to speak freely, using a lot of the Quran or Sunnah, this was difficult. This was challenging at some point. And I'm not talking about Lumat al-I'tiqad. Lumat al-I'tiqad is a very simple matan that teaches al-aqaid to anyone who wants to learn about al-aqaid. To al-awam, Lumat al-I'tiqad can be read in masajid. Yes. It is fine, I think. It is fine for you to hold the position of al-Mu'tazil. And there is this secular, and secular here has all sorts of negative connotations. And there is this secular tolerance that you will never be deemed mubtada, innovator, and that you are definitely safe. And when I talk about safety, I am not referring to harming anyone at all. I'm just referring to one thing: that you are safe, even if that people wouldn't even call you anything. That it will just be a very free country, as if you are an American or something. طبعا, if you open a Hanbali book of Aqa'id, you will see that Imam Ahmad calls certain people kuffar because they say the Quran is created. Yes, you will see in the books of Ibn Qudama that he criticizes groups of al-Ash'ariyya because of how they represent their madhab and how they explain themselves and their madhab to him. Yes. And you will find that there is no Hanbali on earth who has any tolerance towards al-Mu'tazila. Yes. Even though we differentiate between the i'tizal of someone like Jarillah al-Zamakhshari and the i'tizal of Ibn Abi Du'ad, there is a difference. Ibn Abi Du'ad, one of the people of al-Fitna during the time of Imam Ahmad radiallahu anhu, and Jarullah al-Zamakhshari, the scholar of tafsir, who came like a couple of centuries after that. Yes. Even when we make sure that we differentiate like this, still al-Hanabila will never tolerate al-Mu'tazila. There was a rumor that Ibn Aqil started inclining towards al-Mu'tazila because it was reported that he used to visit a man who held the positions of al-i'tizal or the positions of al-Mu'tazila. And I'm speaking to the best of my knowledge. I will never be sure about any of that. When I read from a historical perspective, I'm never sure about any of that. Hanabila criticized him. Ibn Qudama authored a book responding to him and responding to anyone who might be affected by him. Ibn Aqil himself was reported to repent from all that. And to me, Ibn Aqil remains a great Imam. Yes. Day and night we hear nothing about the criticism of Shaykh Taqi-ud-Din ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah wa ghafara wa radiya anhu. Yes. Do you understand that Al-Hanabila criticized him for his participation in ilm al-kalam, even though he responds to al-mutakallimin, but he was using a lot of their methods, a lot of their ways. Yes. Their language. Hanabila criticized him for that. He expounded on the use of speculative theology. There is even this reported letter that al-Dhahabi sent to Ibn Taymiyyah. Yes. Any Hanbali, Safarini, for instance, Safarini had to apologize in the introduction of La'am al-Anwar because he was going to use necessary kalam, as he said. We might disagree with him on a lot of things there, but being apologetic like this is necessary. This explains something to you. I was explaining to the students the letter of Imam Ahmad to the Caliph al-Mutawakkil, and like the end of the letter, Imam Ahmad identifies himself as a man of hadith, صاحب hadith. And the way he said it, it made you think that one can either be a man of kalam or a man of hadith, but not both. I think this is the problem with Hanabila. Yes, that they will exclude others, and I think this way and this strategy, this narrative is extremely, and I mean it, extremely inclusive. Yes, and there is no good purpose there, even though they think that yes, it's all for a good purpose in the world we live in now, and all the politics and all the things. I am really sorry I do not play this game. I have no idea what it is. I think maybe if I were in your place, if I were in your shoes, I would understand what this is. I think they have good intentions. I do not accuse them of any of anything, but I'm highlighting and observing things that I consider very clear. Yeah. Hmm. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Next part is on التصوف, and it's a very beneficial introduction after all. Then I take you to the Aqidah section, in which you have more than 60 titles. 60 titles. All Ash'ari. Or I'm not even sure if I've noticed maybe one Maturidi يعني متن. I know some Maturidiyya who call themselves Maturidiyya and not Ash'ariyya, and they would never tolerate being called or considered Ash'ari. And I know the other group. They call themselves Ash'ari, and I'm not sure if I can call this hypocrisy, and I do not want to be harsh. At the end of the day, they are free people and they do whatever they want. Yes, these people, they call themselves Ash'ari, and whenever it comes to the Masail, very few Masail, where Al-Ash'ariyya or Al-Maturidiyya disagree or have different positions, they hold the Maturidi position. They always, or most of the time, they hold the Maturidi positions. Yes. Yet they call themselves Ash'ari, as if it is stronger to call yourself Ash'ari, and it is more compatible with the dominant narrative. Calling yourself Maturidi, even when practically, technically, you are Maturidi, but in theory, you keep yourself Ash'ari because it's more compatible with the dominant narrative, and we do not want to change it. And this is the unity of the Ummah. Wallahi, the unity of the Ummah can still be maintained. At the end of the day, I say yes, Al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah are Atharis, Ash'aris, and Maturidis. Yes, generally speaking. When I say generally speaking, because at the end of the day, you might find this Ash'ari or this Maturidi who hold very special positions that might exist somewhere in these schools. And we've seen that, especially the Ash'ariyya, with whom Ibn Qudama radiallahu anhu had those like debates or discussions. Yeah. So this is generally speaking, and not Ibn Taymiyyah's in general. And he means when you think of Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah and not the Shia, or Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah as the counterpart of the Shia, then this would include Al Ash'ari or Maturidi. Forget about this. In general, if I see an Ash'ari, I will just think that this is a man from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But I will not walk in the streets or come to the durus holding the banner that says "We are one." This is so American. My apologies, even if you are an American, you understand what I mean. This is so American and unnecessary, and it's like, why all this drama? This is the only way I can express this. خلاص, I tolerate them. I've already told you, I think that they are from Ahl Sunnah. الطائفة الناجية المنصورة يقول not عجيب. This does not make me an Ash'ari, صح? And it does not make me a Maturidi either. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. وأنتم بخير وصحة وعافية. جزاكم الله خيرا. Thank you. حفظكم الله. نعم. حفظنا وإياكم. وجميع المسلمين. وجميع من في هذا اللايف ستريم. Anyway. So there is a difference. Yes, I consider them Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, but I do not call myself Ash'ari, and in reality, I'm not Ash'ari. Yes. So it's not just a matter of labeling someone as an Ash'ari, and it's just a matter of wording. No. The core of Al-Hanbaliya is different. Embracing the differences and seeking or maintaining the unity does not necessarily mean that you become imma. What is the meaning of the word imma? There is something in slang, but I do not wish to use this. You see anyone doing anything and you just follow. These people are okay, we want to be together, the unity of the Ummah. The unity of the Ummah is maybe the unity of the Ummah lies in embracing the differences and respecting them. That there are different narratives, but it's more difficult and more exhausting. Why? More than one narrative. We can barely convince people to come and listen to the one narrative. And you have Al-Wahhabi and the card of Al-Wahhabi. Yeah. There are two main reasons why I would just make dua against Al-Wahhabi. Two main reasons why I hate Qarn al-Shaytan, the horn of the devil, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and his followers who established the madhab. And for the vast majority of Wahhabi, I sympathize with them. And in Egyptian, I would say something like, my heart is with them. Yes, hopefully may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them. Ameen. Yes. Two main reasons. One, their innovation, what they did in Islam, what they pierced in the body of Islam. Yes. The madhahib that they hijacked. And this is what you expect me to say. The other reason is that they allowed people to play the card of Al-Wahhabi. So many different groups, and they all play the cards of Al-Wahhabi. I told you in the previous dars. You would sit in a dars and you expect pure ilm. And even when there is tarweeh, tarweeh, this segment in which Shaykh makes things, maybe jokes about something, talks about something, in order not to exhaust you, especially when it's a long dars. صح? Even in sessions of tarweeh, where he says something that has nothing to do with the discipline we are studying, but it's a funny thing. Latifa min lata'if al-ilm. Latifa means a subtlety, like the subtleties we are gathering. Yes. these mulahul ilm, these beautiful things in ilm related to al-ilm, but we are not really studying the discipline that we came here to study, the books that we came here carrying with us. لا. You would see this unclever, mediocre shaykh, and the book has become very difficult. And he would just stop explaining, and he would shift our attention to the fact that Al-Wahhabiyya did that, and the crimes of Al-Wahhabi, and the innovation and the stupidity of Al-Wahhabi. All true, but we are wasting time on Wahhabiyya now. Yeah, let's do this in our free time. Talk about Al-Wahhabi. But now we are wasting time on Wahhabi, especially that you return back to the statement of the author in the book that we were reading, and you say nothing about it, except that Al-Wahhabiyya wouldn't know how to explain this. And you do not know why. You have no idea how to explain this. You too. Ajib. We have here books. طبعا, do not forget that this the guide or this curriculum telltale manual or whatever, yes, has a section dedicated to branches or disciplines called al-hikmah, literally wisdom, wal-maqulat, a branch. These would be classified as two branches of al-ulum al-aqliyya. Wal-hikmah means philosophy. Hikmah is the Arabic word for philosophy. The word falsafa is taken from philosophy. Yes, and it's sometimes used as well. But the original name, al-hikmah, which literally means wisdom. And we have a section here in front of me for that, for al-hikmah wa ilm al-maqulat. علم المقولات, I would say categories. In English, we say, or English speakers or authors on this topic would say the science of, or the discipline or the science of categories. Yes. يعني الجوهر, you'll discuss الجوهر. In English you say substance, العرض, والكم, والكيف, these things. Quantity, quality, الأين والمتى, time and place, and other things. Not quality. Now, in this section, how many books? More than 19 books. It even included Al-Jumhuriyya. Guess what Al-Jumhuriyya is? And the author of Al-Jumhuriyya is Aflatun. Can anyone guess what Al-Jumhuriyya is? Have you ever heard of the Republic? Not the Republic we live in, the Republic, the book. Yeah. No, not Republic style state, the Republic by Plato. Do you know Plato? Yeah. There was room for Plato. And to be honest, if it was up to me, I would include Plato and accurate representations and translations of Aristotle and Socrates. Socrates means Plato as well. Yes. We can explain this later, yes, but we will study Socrates from from this perspective of his student, and I would include more than that if you want. Yeah, but there was room for Plato. Studied in Al-Jam al-Azhar al-Sharif. Remember what we said at the beginning of this live, yes. But Usul al-Sunnah, maybe if it's written in the book of Adud al-Din al-Iji, or maybe Hujjat al-Islam al-Ghazali. رحمهم الله ورضي الله عن الغزالي وعن علماء المسلمين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Again, I think I leave no room for people to misunderstand what I'm saying. I would add more. I would not stop at the Republic by Plato. I would make the students study Aristotle and others. And I'm saying true representations of Aristotle, not the distorted translations and versions of the Aristotelian madhab, Aristotelian school. So many things that can be discussed here in this book. I would like to go now to the Tawheed section or Usul al-Din section. It's called Tawheed now here. Yes. And it has the books of Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari, rahimahullah, and Imam al-Ghazali, radiyallahu anhu, wal-Imam al-Nasafi, wal-Imam al-Baydawi, all the great scholars of Kalam, all the Ashawis, all the great names. Yes. والعقائد النسفية والمواقف وأم البراهين وجوهرة التوحيد and their explanations and everything. Even the Hawashi, يعني even حاشية الصاوي, even the detailed Hawashi. We studied that with the Mashaykh. حاشية البايجوري والباجور. And the explanations, and more than one explanation for the method. These were the things, because this is the truth. These were the things studied and taught in Azhar al-Sharif. Even the works of contemporary scholars and professors. 63 books. Yes, this is on al-Tawheed. Then a section on al-Firaq, sects. Yes, sects. 12 books. The school of Ahlul Hadith wal Athar, as if it doesn't exist, as if it has never existed. We have books saying this is the Aqidah of Al-Hanabila, this is the I'tiqad of Ahmad. Yani we have a claim as big as this. This is the I'tiqad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. People used to say, we are on the... Imam al-Ash'ari himself at some point said, I am on the same Aqidah. I'm following the same Aqidah that Ahmad ibn Hanbal had or stated. We usually explain to the students that yes, he claims the same results, the same conclusions. He never discussed that he restricts himself or that he restricted himself to the same methodologies. Ajib, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. This book was given to me by a student or someone with whom we studied together. uh, y- these are, I'm not sure how to explain this. طبعا this is forbidden, never do this. But first page of the book, some observations were written. It says here كل مؤلفات التوحيد المذكورة أشعرية. Yeah, not even the Maturidi school is not even represented here. I do not think a lot of the Maturidiyya would object, but maybe the subcontinent Maturidiyya. Hopefully they will object to that. And it has something like an emoji. I forbid this. طبعا. Do not do this to books, please. But I kept it because this, yeah, because it's funny, and probably not funny like strange. Yes. Hmm. عجيب. كل مؤلفات التوحيد المذكورة أشعرية. But listen, we do not tell anyone that you have to adopt a madhab or a doctrine. Freedom. Ah. The illusion of freedom. It breaks my heart. At the end of it, I really respect Al-Azhar Sharif. I take pride in I would always take pride in studying Al-Azhar Sharif. I would just highlight the merits of studying there. Always. I will show people that the way you are studying Al-Ilm is not the proper way. Come to Al-Azhar Sharif and see the proper way. Yet, you have to be an honest, sincere advisor. Yes. Yes. It breaks my heart to say, this is the illusion of freedom. Like most of the Western political systems. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله يحفظكم يا فضيلة الشيخ محمد طول القرنين. حفظكم الله وجزاكم الله خير. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of some benefit. وإياكم آمين. جزاكم الله خير. The illusion of freedom. I do not want to hear things like, you go and read, and it's up to you to read it. And if you study the proper aqidah of the mutakallimin, you'll be able to read anything. This illusion of superiority, then we are better than others. This reminds me of, you know whom? Yes. The let's say the sons of descendants, monkeys and pigs. We are better. Inherently, we are better than others. Even when there is nothing to support this claim, we are better than others. And if you read our books, you'll be able to understand everything else. يعني والله, their objections to what we say in our aqa'id, the objections of their scholars to what we say in our aqa'id, will just show you that they make horrible mistakes, and they misunderstand and miscommunicate just because they have never been trained to read books written in a scholarly manner different from theirs. And should we change our style or our way or our methodology, isn't it enough for us to have this great honor that we are just sticking and adhering to Al-Kitab wa Sunnah without any deviation, without claiming anything else in the world, the criterion of anything in the world. Yes. Without calling any foreign discipline the criterion of knowledge. Ajib. One of the things that I find ironic is that they, with us, they criticize Shaykh Taqi ibn Taymiyyah, Afallahu anhu wa radi anhu, for mistakes that he actually made. And they forget to mention that he used the same methodologies. Yes, he didn't adhere to the scholarly tradition in a lot of his writings, yes. But the influence is clear. The way he argues and the way he organizes his responses and the madahib that he explains in his books is influenced by you because he was responding to you. Ajib. Ajib. طيب. خلاص, we heard you. Let's say we are convinced. Now, give us a solution for this problem. How do we coexist? Easy answer. Acknowledgement. Admit, acknowledge that we exist. And we are not seeking any confirmation or anything. Just do this so that we find like a channel through which we communicate. We are neither, and we are not seeking love here. We're not seeking any kind of emotions here. Yes, and we are not seeking these Western trends. I want to be heard. I want to be known. No, I'm just talking about the very logical aspect of the matter. If you start saying, you know what, there is another group, Hanabila, they are the worst of people, but they exist, then we will be able to tell you, yes, and this is the reason why we are different from you. This is one thing. And explain to us how you acknowledge groups like Al-Jahmi. Alhamdulillah that it was not extended to the aqaid of Shia, especially Al-Ithna Ashri and the strong groups among Shia. This would be, but at the end of the day, who are the Mu'tazila and who are the Jahmiya of the day? Aren't they Shia? The whole thing is very strange. By the way, I think one of the authors, I think I read the name of, let me. I think some of, unless I wouldn't even say Plato again. I think some authors here are not even, they belong to other millen, other religions. خلاص, forget about pagans, ancient Greek pagans, forget about them. They are fine. You know what? I will let students study this in Al-Azhar Sharif if it was up to me, and I have no aspiration at all. I will not even accept being identified as Azhari. خلاص? Or labeled as Azhari. Do not call me Azhari. I'm just Hanbali. Yes. Uh, Teaching Plato or Aristotle or whatever, this is fine, but not to the extent that I start saying, you know what, maybe Aristotle was Sayyidina Aristotle, or maybe Plato was a Muslim after all. Not to that extent. And some of these people, they act like this, unfortunately. I think I saw the name of a Shi'i author, I think. I do not remember the name now because I do not want to make the mistake. I remember the name, but I do not remember if it was the name that I actually saw or not. Um, can't find it now. So you might find some Shi'i authors as well, especially that they have some good hawashi on the on books written in ilm al-kalam and logic, and maybe some books of philosophy as well. Hmm. One of the last things I want to say now is that we learned from our shuyukh al-Azhar al-Sharif, especially those who I do not want to mention names now because I do not want to be a liability or anything or cause anyone troubles. Um, some of our mashayikh taught us books like The Criterion of Knowledge by Imam al-Ghazali. Yes. And and other books in Tasawwuf and other books in Falsafa. And he wrote introductions to philosophy and introductions to speculative theology. And he said that there is a difference between teaching al-aqa'id to the students and teaching ilm al-kalam. Teaching al-aqa'id to the students, this is when we teach them tasawwuf, the pure aqidah, regardless of arguing against a group of innovators. Yes? So this means that you hold the aqidah and you consider that if any, you are certain, well, what is al-i'tiqad? What is the meaning of the word a'taqid or ashhadu? When you say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I am certain that I bear witness now that this is the true i'tiqad. The usul, the principal matters of al-aqidah they necessitate having certainty. Otherwise, you will not be able to say that this is your i'tiqad, you will say that this is your doubt or something. So this necessitates that al-mukhalif, the other, is wrong. Then being wrong, being incorrect, this can be discussed. He's being wrong, but there is an excuse for him. I will understand if you put it this way. Or maybe he is wrong, as al-Hanabila say, the mujtahid in a madhab, in an innovated madhab. And this innovation is kufr. And there is a difference between describing the innovation as kufr and describing the innovator as kafr. So this position is a position of kufr. The mujtahid, the person who holds this position, not because he follows anyone, not because he does taqleed, because he is convinced. He sought its evidence and he got convinced. Or maybe he's deceiving himself and the others. But he has the tools. He's capable of knowing the differences. He's capable of knowing that this is not supported by evidence. In theory, this mujtahid will be a kafir and his muqallid will be a fasiq. And it's not a crime. This is written in the books of al-fiqh that al-Azhar al-Sharif says that they have been taught in its arwiqa, in its classes, in its rooms, or in the masjid and in the university. in our books of al-fiqh, we explain this principle that I have just explained. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi. Do you have any comment on the what? I I do not know what this is in Gaza. Barakallahu feek. Maybe you're referring to this aid, صح? That tried to reach Gaza and they kidnapped them. Hmm. I'm not really sure. Why would I comment on this? Hmm? Why would I comment on this? What, what is there to say? Whatever I say will just lead me to unknown places. Yes? Where are you in the world? I will come to you and I will tell you what I think about the whole issue. Yes? Let me talk about al-ilm al-sharif. If you want any hope for this ummah, let's discuss al-ilm first. Especially that you can do nothing other than that. Uh, the last thing I have on my mind now is when I was told by some of my mashayikh that he actually taught some of the Hanbali books in Al-Aqaid, in Al-Azhar al-Sharif, and he would take pride in this. Yes, without being acknowledged. And this was something done secretly, not secretly, and it was done without shedding the light. It's just something, if you want to do this, do it anyway. It makes no difference. At the end of the day, who attends your dars? Very few people, that's it. وفتح الله عليك. Use the label أهل السنة والجماعة الأشعرية والماتريدية. Do we tell them to include the Hanabila or Asriya? This became a big issue in Malaysia. Wallahi, say nothing. There is no benefit in addressing these issues like that. This is just my opinion, but remember, I am this very conservative person. And I'm not, yeah, if they invite me to debate, I do not debate. If they invite me to discuss, wallah, I will not discuss with you. Because my terms will be very difficult. So let's just save ourselves this headache. And you know the Hanbali. By the way, I'm just representing here the Hanbali philosophy of doing things. They say Ahl Sunnah are al-Ash'ariyya wal-Maturidiyya, and some people would just give us the great honor, yes, the great privilege of including Fudala al-Hanabila. You understand? Al-Ash'ariyya are not just one group united under the same thing. I really like the Ash'ari of someone like Shaykh al-Islam al-Hajar al-Asqalani and someone like Imam Nawawi radiyallahu anhu. Yes. So early tonight in a dars, I said, you know these things, we call them tashghib. I'm not sure how to explain tashghib to you in English. I usually explain it in the durus. It's a term. It's a term. But let's say it's, when you appeal to logos, when you appeal to ethos, when you appeal to pathos, when you speak and you appeal to the. Yeah. Tashghib literally will be mischief. Yes. So when someone is raising uh, objections, but in this game making a claim with mischief and yeah. disruption. Yes, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are three groups. They would say this. Remember, this doesn't come from an official institution like Al Azhar Sharif. I've just shown you, and even this doesn't come from Al Azhar Sharif. You would listen to some individuals saying Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are three groups with this sense of superiority: Al Ash'ari, Al Maturidiyya, thank God, وفضلاء الحنابلة, the good ones among the Hanabila. But listen to this. If we are going to be like kids, like children, if you want to be childish, listen to this childish way of putting things. أهل السنة والجماعة الطائفة الناجية المنصورة are الحنابلة. That's it. This is not really my position, to be honest. But if you want to be childish, we can be childish. Everyone can be. If you want to engage in this manner of تشغيب, let's do this. But listen to this. أهل السنة والجماعة are الحنابلة. And by the way, I would like to make sure that people understand that الأثرية are الحنابلة. Yes? Otherwise, you'll be changing terminology that has been stable for long centuries now. So please, do not call them Athariya, do not call them Ahl al-Hadith, unless you make sure people understand that you are talking about al-Hanabil, or that this is synonymous. Yes? Anyway, Ahl-Sunnah al-Jama'ah are al-Hanabil, وَفُضَلَاءُ الْأَشْعَرِيِّة, وَفُضَلَاءُ الْمَتُرِيدِيِّة. Because we will have to exclude those whose positions are mentioned by some of our scholars who do not represent the majority of that madhab. They say فضلاء الحنابلة, and they mean that al-Hanabila, some of them were mujassima, some of them were something else. I will ask you a question. Do you consider al-Khalwati among فضلاء al-Hanabila? They would definitely say yes. Al-Khalwati and his Hawashi and the books that he wrote and the notes that he took from his Ash'ari Shaykh and his Ash'ari positions in his books. So this is among فضلاء al-Hanabila. Then you do not understand the terminology, or you understand it and you choose to disregard and to neglect what we are trying to say here. Very quick facts. Do you know Shaykh Shadi? Nothing but facts. Nothing but facts now, but my version. And I always borrow this from Shaykh Shadi, Hafidhullah. Yes, nothing but facts. I watched it a couple of times and I really liked the whole idea. And I think this man is suffering there because of to keep this community together and to introduce these concepts to al-awam like this. I would never be able to do this. But anyway, nothing but facts. I do not care whether al-Ash'ariyya support me or not. And I do not care for al-Ash'ariyya. I care for them as Muslims. Yes. As supporters of al-Ilm al-Sharif and the Sharia. But the Ash'ari aspect, I'm indifferent. Yeah. Now, I do not want to sound like a person who causes fitna. But if you read history, and unfortunately people do not read history, and by the way, there is an acceptable curriculum for history here, studied in Al-Azhar Sharif and taught in Al-Azhar Sharif, you'll see that Hanabila were discriminated against. Being a minority and being a madhab that does not really tolerate certain differences that others are, or that others were always ready to accept, and differences that they were ready to, yeah, cope with. Because do you think literary criticism could ever successfully replace the Neoplatonic models of analysis where it exists in the Islamic sciences? I don't have any hopes. Yes, my hopes are there in your countries, to be honest. يعني we will have to take all this ilm to a new realm. Yes, forget about the globalization in our world. Yes, I think there is hope there where you are, especially in countries where Islam is somehow strong. And not in France, for example. Yes. To be honest, it would be a great achievement if we start adopting new Platonic models of analysis. What they are adopting is this is you will if you study in a good Western university, if you study humanities in general, I think anyone who studies humanities and who studies sincerely, not just to take a degree and find a job. Yes, if you study humanities in general, in any good Western university, from a Western perspective, yes, with all with all the filth there, yes, you will be able to see that these models here, that this so-called criterion of knowledge, that whatever they call discourse analysis, this is full of al-ajaib wal-gharaib, let's say, the strange things. And yes, great achievements, great work. And I'm not even holding, I haven't even started holding the positions of Orientalists. صح؟ يعني I will tell you, Orientalists are bad people. Do not listen to them. And this is, well, like, at the end of the day, they have a position against this. They think of themselves. They have the same. They are practicing the same not a strategy. Yes, they think of themselves as superiors, and they come to these branches of ilm al-kalam and philosophy. They say, "What is this? This is nonsense." And I read some of that to the students before from an introduction to Islamic philosophy by one of the Azhari Mashaykh in the 20th century. It would be a great development, a great upgrade if we start adopting Neoplatonic models. Yeah, for the Shaykh. We are adopting. If this was a software, we are adopting yani something much older, something much worse. By the way, if you see how Arabic literature is studied in certain circles, in certain Azhari circles, you will never be happy. You'll never be happy because it's as if it's studied exclusively for the sake of studying tafsir wal Quran. And we usually say that art has to be studied for art's sake. And this is the way dictated by الإحسان الذي كتبه الله على كل شيء. And religiously, you have to study literature in that manner of studying literature, and not for the sake of anything. To the extent that some scholars who explain الشواهد, explain الشواهد. Shawahid are these verses of poetry that are used to support a grammatical rule or so. They do not know the poem, so they will explain the evidence, the verse, which is the proof of the evidence of the grammatical rule, incorrectly because they do not understand what the poem says. And I talked before about this. Yeah, I told you before about Russian formalism and structuralism, and even then they do not do this properly. They do this in a very limited manner. There is no room for talking about this here, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. How can one cope with the feeling of not having any friends or peers to discuss ilmi matters with? The road feels alone. Wallahi, yeah, you do not have a name here. خلاص. You محب الشيخ أدهم. Yes, العاسمي. Listen, يا أخي الكريم الفاضل. Um, the road is alone. So if it just feels alone, it is alone. And maybe you will have a good, yeah, you will find a good قدوة, yes, role model in in Sayyidina Abi Dhar. Even though this hadith does not have the most authentic asanid, so it has some weaknesses. Yes, it has been narrated from the Prophet ﷺ about some incident with Sayyidina Abi Dhar al-Ghifari. He said, "May Allah grant Abu Dhar His mercy." Hmm. Why? He walks alone, he dies alone, and he gets resurrected on the day of judgment alone. Yes? So this is a very lonely path of ilm, ya fadilti. If it feels differently, if you have friends, ihmadillah and remain silent about it. Do not even highlight it. But as a scholar, yani this is not the academia where you will write a paper, huh? And you are the co-author of a paper with someone else, and we work in academic environment. This is different. Al-ilm al-sharif is different. It's a very lonely path, if I say. Hmm. Yes. How can one cope with the feeling? Firstly, by accepting this as a fact, nothing but fact. Yes, so this is one fact. Listen, if your case is better than this, or if things get better, ihmadillah, say alhamdulillah, and continue. But most of the time, it's never like you'll have friends, companions, and second thing, accepting it as a fact. Second thing, uh, remember great figures much better than you, and you will never achieve what they have achieved. For Islam and Muslimin, they used to study alone without. Remember the mashayikh who would, or the narrators of hadith. This narrator who would wake up his slave, yes, just to narrate to her what he had just received from his Shaykh, and the other who spent the Shafi'i scholar who spent his nights on the roof repeating one sentence or one phrase, if I remember correctly, to the extent that the old woman, his neighbor, memorized it without him being capable of memorizing it. Doing this alone, yes. Hmm. You'll have to accept this, yeah, for this sake. So acceptance uh, and reminding yourself of the misery and the hardship that others experienced before you. So maybe you're not there alone, صح? Uh, Unfortunately, Maulana, the only good philosophy programs are in the UK. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I've seen some of the students who would come from universities, they're studying uh, the classics and studying other branches of humanity, literature, and other things, and those who study philosophy as well. I, at least you are capable of explaining to them where the problem is. At least you are capable of pointing to where the problem is, and they have knowledge that benefits you, that enlightens you. Yes. So you see more the problem there in that version um, was a very old one. Yes, yani 1,200 years old. Yeah, not my West. Yes, but humanities, study humanity. If I'm not telling you go now and study humanities, your West, I think I understand what you mean by your West. If you mean America, but at the end of the day, universities there are really expensive. What can people do? But at least it's there. You see, Alhamdulillah. Yes. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Is Imam Buhuti a good source for Mu'tamad in Hanbali Mazhab since he is later than others and does tahqiq? Imam Buhuti is the Sharih of al-Madhab. Yes, the Sharih of al-Madhab. The man who explains the Madhab. His positions are the Mu'tamad position. If someone disagrees with him, this will be in very, very few masail. This will be done rarely. And at the end of the day, a man who wants to follow al-Bhuti can still follow al-Bhuti even if the world disagrees with him. Because to a man who does taqleed, al-Bhuti is a higher authority than anyone else in the world. Than anyone else in the world who might disagree with him. So yes, definitely. Al-Bhuti is the man who explained the two books that we call the Mu'tamad of the Madhab. Yeah, this is a little bit reductive, but for people out there, it is enough for us to say Muntal Iradat wal Iqna' are the Mu'tamad, and he explained both books. I will use this to tell you that I would like to return to the book that I've shown you today, اللي هو this curriculum telltale manual. Yes, to visit the Hanbali's fiqh section, and we will not be tonight's discussion was a very serious one. There it will be look, I used to study this and I will just tell you what I think, because I'm not sure what it means to study some of these books. So I'm not going to criticize, or most of it will not be criticism. I do not have objection. This is the good way of expressing this idea. I do not really have objections. I have comments. تعليقات, like a hashia or something. Yeah. And to imagine how it would be to study some of the mutun mentioned there. You see? Ilm is a great blessing, yes. But greater blessings come with greater hardship. I definitely agree with you. Yeah, Shaykh Qarub. I remember you from the last time. Shaykh, how do we understand the concept of kasb according to the Hanbali? It's not really different from how Al-Ash'ariyya explain it. Ibn Qudama explains this very simply. At the end of the day, Allah is the only doer of things, the only creator of things. Yes, things do not have this inherent power in them, but people have intentions. Yes, and they can choose, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may, so it's possible for Allah to create things according to their choices. This is a very simple way of putting it. And more than that is never necessary. This is how I would answer your question. That's it. But the more important point is to believe that Allah is the only and the actual doer of things, the only creator of things. You understand what things are? Anything but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this context. And we have, how do we understand? I have answered. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallahu khairan for these live sessions. Jazakum khair. يا شيخ شريف. I remember your name as well. يا شيخ شريف مرحبا. Also shouldn't غاية المنتهى be more be better to study since many mashayikh in Sham were known for memorizing it even. I disagree with this. I definitely disagree with this. And some scholars, not even in Sham, uh, not even in Sham, yes, um, we're talking about this tafdeel, this preference. Which book represents the reliable composition more, Al-Iqna' or Al-Munta? My answer to this question is both of them, as we always say, and this is the most authentic position out there. Yes. And by the way, regardless of people who hold positions, you can logically argue for this. Yani you can show evidence. So forget about not the number of people who would say it's al-Muntaha, it's al-Iqna', it's both, or it's some other book. It's not about the number of people or the higher authority or the most famous one. These are never standards, or these are never the criteria. Yes, there is a logical argument there. غاية المنتهى is a book that combines الإقناع والمنتهى, sure, and it has الاتجاهات, these أوجه, or these positions produced by Shaykh Mar'i, اجتهاد in the madhab, his اجتهاد in the madhab. Sometimes they are found in Iqna' al-Muntaha, sometimes he has new contribution, something that he adds to the madhab. So this does not make you study the book, but to memorize it, this sounds like a good choice. You know why? Because Muntaha al-Iradat, the book I have memorized, is a very difficult book to memorize. The organization is difficult. Al-Iqna' is a very big matn, 4 volumes for the matn itself. So this is a huge matn. Sometimes it's written in a language that is not usually used in al-mutun, but used in the explanations and in the commentaries al-Hawashi. You see? So memorizing Ghayat al-Muntaha, this makes perfect sense. Considering it the source of the relied upon position, no. A man who reaches that level will have to consult both books. Not just both books, al-Muntaha al-Iqna', their explanations, Hawashi, and much more. And referring back, I mean by back, I mean the chronological order of these books, yes? Back to Al-Insaf, Tasheeh al-Furu' and Al-Tanqih. And even more, if you understand the methodology that Al-Mardawi relied on. وهكذا. I think this might be a good answer. But remember, you memorize any book. Students who can't memorize Muntaha al-Iradat, I haven't seen any of my students who decided to memorize Muntaha al-Iradat, and I wouldn't, to be honest, I do not think they should. I saw my Shaykh and he said to me, I'm not sure if I misunderstood him, but he said something like, I memorized the explanation of Muntaha al-Iradat, دقائق أولي النور. This is a huge book, but he said that he was a very good memorizer, so I do not call him. I do not have any reason to doubt this. It's fine. Muntaha al-Iradat, to memorize Muntaha al-Iradat, this is very difficult, and I know that I can't memorize I can't recall Muntaha al-Iradat now the same way I recall Surah Al-Fatiha, but I will always be able to give you long sentences the same way he said it there. Yes? This is when it comes to Muntaha al-Iradat. I tell you, I'm coming from the past. I'm telling you, listen, do not waste a lot of time there if it's not something that you can do quickly. If you can't memorize Muntaha al-Iradat in a year and a half, please, you will not win something when you memorize Muntaha al-Iradat. And there is nothing to show off when you say I memorize Muntaha al-Iradat, because it means nothing if you do not understand it. You know these things. I know these things. You know what? I hate the community of al-Mashaykh and students of knowledge because of these things. I memorized this, and that. أيوة. Come and let's discuss العلم now on the spot, without books, without anything, with the things that you will take with you when you go to the toilet. Let's discuss now on the spot. Do not send me messages. Do not send me voice notes. Now, face to face. Let's discuss العلم. There is nothing to be proud of, but if you were to take pride in anything, you might be allowed to take pride in the fact that you can understand and discuss, that you can conceptualize the مسائل of العلم. Memorization. I will use the language of the internet. Memorization is overrated, and this is coming from me, a man who memorized a lot. Do you know what? I memorized some of the Wahhabi book because I was forced to memorize them. I was forced to memorize Wahhabi mutun. Memorization overrated. Memorize the Quran, memorize a lot of al-hadith and probably some of the asanid to be familiar with them. And when it comes to al-mutun, okay, memorize them, but let's not make it an impossible task. So I wouldn't say go and memorize Muntal Iradat. I would say go and memorize Dalil al-Talib and not Zad al-Mustaqil, because Dalil al-Talib will be explained to you and not Zad al-Mustaqil if you are following a good Hanbali curriculum. But this might be discussed next time, and I've already discussed this before, but there is no harm in repetition, except harm that I... In Hanbali madhab, جزاكم الله خيرا. أيوة كل ما سوى الله عز وجل. In Hanbali madhab, how would we determine a valid disagreement within the school? Valid versus a shared view that does not belong to the madhab and is not valid to follow. Easy answer. Everything that you find in Insaf is a position that can be attributed to the madhab, even though it's not necessarily the relied upon position, even when it's chosen as the first position, or the position that Al-Mardawi in Al-Insaf highlights as the relied upon position, because Al-Mardawi might disagree with himself, but this is another topic. So everything that you find in Insaf and Al-Furu', Al-Insaf is, let's say Al-Insaf and Al-Furu', yes, everything that you find there can be called a position that belongs to Al-Madhab. Al-Insaf is better though, because the author of Al-Furu' might highlight the madhab of his Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, a madhab that from an usuli perspective can never belong to the madhab. But in general, I would say al-insaf. Any position that you find there is a valid position. For a man to be able to make that distinction, he has to study enough usul, not just usul al-fiqh like Sharh al-Kawkab al-Munir and other books of usul, whether in our madhab or the other madhab. I mean the usul of al-madhab. Books like the introduction to Al-Insaf and the epilogue, and the Sifat al-Fatwa by Ibn Hamdan and Tahzib al-Ajwiba by Ibn Hamid, and some introduction of other books like Ri'ayah, and the introduction also to Al-Hawi. Yes. And it will not stop there, and this person has to have a lot of experience with the tara'iq, the methodologies of al-fuqaha in their books of fiqh. And this person will be able to tell, after doing some analysis, whether this position belongs to the madhab or not. Remember, our madhab is very difficult because of the many narrations there, the many narrations from Imam Ahmad. Yes? So, and their interpretations, the interpretations of the narrations from Imam Ahmad. So, yeah, it might be tricky. But if you want a safe and easy way for an intermediate student, go consult Al-Insaf. Positions there are proper positions that belong to the madhab. Jamil, good question. It's strange that those who do not accept the Hanabila as a valid school in Aqeedah would have no issue accepting the Maturidiyya, even though the differences between both schools are often semantic. Between Al-Ash'ariyya and Maturidiyya. Listen, among the three schools, there is a possibility for one to say that it's all semantic. only if the others, and by the others I mean other than the Hanabila, if they just listen to us carefully and understand what we are trying to say and stop saying very problematic things that they do not need to say in the first place. And I remember talking about and gifting some of the mashayikh the book of Al-Qawl al-Jali. I usually make the mistake. Al-Qawl al-Jali, if I remember correctly. The difference between Al-Ash'ari and Hanbali by Shaykh al. Yes. And even though I do not agree with every single thing there in the book, but it has a good thesis. Yes. There is a way of there is a way of reconciling between all these madhab. And this is the main reason why I make the claim that they are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But I can't control everyone's narrative out there. If you decide that no, and you hold certain positions, I will have to reject you and your positions. And I'm not even negotiating. To be honest, Al-Hanabila will never negotiate. And I think this is another problem because most of the time it's political. And they think that everything can be done in this political manner. Yes? And you'll find that in history, you will never find a respectable Hanbali figure who accepted any negotiation or any any negotiations on these matters of al-aqaid. By the way, this is the main reason why our philosophy is never to debate. A proper debate. We can discuss all the time, but never a debate. One enters the debate while doubting his position, while keeping an open mind that the position of the opponent might be true, and it's up to the opponent. It's up to him. If he can convince me, if he can show me, if he can force me by showing me evidence that forces me to hold the position of al-haq. How am I? Let's do this in al-fiqh. Because yes, al-fiqh is based on al-dhann. But do you think that I will enter a debate doubting the Aqidah of Ahmad bin Hanbal? I have in my heart, in my head, in my intellect, these are the highest levels of certainty. You know why? Because it's all based on tafweed. I will never enter a debate like this. There is no Hanbali who will enter a debate like this. No. And if you show me anything in history, I will be able to explain it to you. Would it be abnormal for a Hanbali who specializes in ulum, Quran, to specialize in Ishari tafsir? I would like to approach this if advanced as a student, but I don't know if this is Tafsir al-Ishari should be studied after studying tafsir. Tafsir should be studied after studying all of the ulum. It's fine for al-Hanbali to study Tafsir al-Ishari, but I hate for a Hanbali to abandon the tradition. So if you want to study any discipline, consider the following things. Here are disciplines that you'll have to study thoroughly first until you become a Shaykh in these disciplines. Al-fiqh, because we are very few. So we do not really have this privilege of sparing another. I think it has just got to be connected. If you are still there, I will answer the rest of your questions and leave, inshallah. So I answered the question of the Ishari tafsir. You have to study certain things first, and then you have the liberty to do whatever you want. You didn't hear my answer on to the question of the Ishari tafsir. Please confirm this. I will answer other questions until you confirm this. Jazakallahu khairan. I think I answered this and this. Jazakallah. Barakallahu fikum ya Shaykh. Also, I've watched your series on Mustalah al-Hadith and I benefited a lot and helped me study Mustalah. What curriculum would you advise when it comes to memorizing Hadith and Hadith, like Hadith itself? Listen, I do not like the fact that we have, as students of knowledge, to only memorize in the beginning the Hadith of al-Fiqh. Yes? That we have to study Hadith al-Ahkam. But you know what? It will help you a lot, especially when you become a faqih. And everyone has to have this intention of becoming a faqih in any madhab. So, whatever your madhab is, start with Umdatul Ahkam, the hadith of al-Bukhari or Muslim. And there you have nearly something like 400 hadiths there. So this is a good beginning. Before that, if you have never memorized hadith before, make sure you memorize the Arba'in al-Nawawiyya because it's a very easy method. Then Umdatul Ahkam. And then the next method will depend on your madhab. Okay? But I am in no position of telling people in the other madhab what to memorize. Yes? If I were Maliki, I would memorize al-Muwatta, for instance. You understand? But as a Hanbali, after Umdat al-Ahkam, I would just tell you nothing in the middle. Just go for the biggest book. Do not waste time. And this comes from a person who was forced to memorize Bulugh al-Maram before memorizing Al-Muntaqa, which is the biggest book. Al-Muntaqa li Shaykh al-Islam Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah. You can stop there anywhere on the way. And if you do not wish to continue in that journey of memorizing Ahadith al-Ahkam, the Ahadith of al-Fiqh, then I'm not sure what to tell you, but how about memorizing Sahih Muslim? It's not really important, but it's a good book for memorization. Yes. What does Sawabahu al-Mardawi, I think, entail? Would that make the position mu'tamad? Yes, definitely, especially if it's his last position. Because some of his positions might abrogate. This is not the most accurate word to be used here, but it makes sense in English at least. Some of his positions might abrogate his earlier positions. Yes, if we subscribe to the order of his books, and to the historical order that he authored Al-Insaf first, then he also authored Tasihih al-Furu', then he authored At-Tanqih. This is what I subscribe to. There are other positions on the order that At-Tanqih was first before Tasihih, but I do not think this is correct, and even if it's correct, it will not change the fact that his position in At-Tanqih abrogates anything else, wherever it is in the other books. So Sawabahu al-Mardawi means that it is the relied upon position, unless, I'm really sorry, these are not like easy matters that can be like finished in one phrase or sentence, or one ruling that solves all the problems. La. Unless you have a critical argument against his choice. But remember, it's very difficult to go against al-Mardawi. Not because we respect him and the fact that he's a great imam, because of his accuracy, because of his precision, because of his quality. Yes, I think you can easily argue against some other scholars without naming them, but not in Mardawi. It's difficult. Before going against al-Mardawi, I think you will have to calculate it properly. In other words, probably you are wrong and you haven't seen where you made the mistake yet. My connection, we didn't hear your answer. Your connection cut for us for a few minutes. So mentioning that we need to study fiqh because we are few. Yes, and we do not. Yes, and they said we do not have this privilege or this luxury of sparing another one. You see, Very few people. Yani people come here and they think of people out there and they call them Hanabila and they are not. And I know their history, and those people do not. Those people may be young. They didn't see where some Hanabila were in 2014 and 2015 and 2016. This is yesterday, yes, but this is history to some people. فماذا تصنع? But we need authentic Hanabila, yes, sincere Hanabila, not hypocrites. You see, the other discipline that you'll have to study is ulum al-hadith, because a Hanbali who doesn't master al-hadith will never understand what's happening in the madhab. He has to not usul al-fiqh, no. Studying usul al-fiqh is very important to understand Ahmad bin Hanbal's way. This is not what I need from you, at least later. Study usul al-fiqh, or study usul al-fiqh from the very beginning, whatever you want. Yes, and I have explained what scholars in their books of usul say about how to organize your study of al-fiqh and usul. Yet, if I am raising a muqallid first, who can be a mujtahid later, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you barakah in your study, yes. But if I'm raising a muqallid who is aspiring to become a mujtahid in the madhab, then we'll have to understand the way al-madhab was transmitted, the way criticism was practiced in the madhab. Without studying ulum al-hadith extensively, you'll never be able to do so. Khalas? You'll be able to recall rulings from the book of al-fiqh. You'll never be able to explain to us what the philosophy behind this ruling is. So you'll have to study ulum al-hadith until you master it. And lastly, you'll have to study enough of the Arabic language, all of its branches, especially Arabic literature. And I would say literature in general. But there is no enough of literature. Literature is something that you keep studying until you die. Wallahu al-musta'an. 3 things. Do them first, and dedicate yourself to them, and do whatever you want to study tafsir al-ishari and more of tasawwuf. Go ahead. You master these ulum first. طبعا while being mutasawwif, while disciplining yourself, the guidance of a shaykh is needed, even though we say that there are no perfect guiding mentors or so, but the guidance of a shaykh is important. Yes, even if the shaykh is not Hanbali, and definitely try to be Qadiri. It's very important to have these 3 things in the Hanbali madhab. Hanbali in fiqh, Hanbali in al-i'tiqad, Hanbali in tasawwuf, which means Qadiri in tasawwuf. This consistency makes perfect sense, as Ibn Rajab radiallahu anhu explained that meaning in some of his rasail, in some of his texts. So ulum al-Quran while maintaining the tradition. But again, ulum al-Quran, a great discipline, but remember, ulum al-Quran is not a difficult discipline, yes? If you mean tafsir is something that you study after finishing your study, especially tafsir al-ishari that you mentioned. Ulum al-Quran, as the separate discipline called ulum al-Quran, this is not a difficult discipline. Yes? So, if you find yourself among the smarter ones, the brighter ones, how about you do not waste yourself doing something that can be done by someone who possesses less qualifications? So I have studied ulum al-Quran. You should study ulum al-Quran, but to dedicate all your work and study to ulum al-Quran, this is not the right choice if you are a Hanbali. We need you more in other places. Other places, we have never been sufficed there in the first place. So remember that. It's a responsibility. It's not just what you prefer or what you desire. I will tell you something that our Mashaykh used to say. They said, who can't learn the different recitations of the Quran? Because we were saying to them, okay, we learned Hafs and we learned Shu'bah. What's next? They said, okay, who can't learn what is difficult there? To pronounce, you can't pronounce properly. خلاص. How about your intellect? Is it working properly? No. You can pronounce. How about your intellect? Is it working properly? And if it's working properly, how about you leave the recitation of the Quran to a man who would never be able to study the more complicated ulum? This is just an example, and I hope you understand what this means. Remember, in Lazhar, they teach you everything. The other day, I was reading a book on al-imla, dictation, that I studied there. Dictation, even dictation, يا أخي الكريم. I hope you understand this without. وعليكم السلام. This is Abdul Rahman from Australia. مرحبا يا شيخ عبد الرحمن from Australia. كيف حالك الشريف يا شيخ عبد الرحمن from Australia. We heard some object to non-Hanbali being Qadiri due to the harsh views attributed to Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani in regards to Ash'aris and Maturidis. Are these attributions accurate? Some of them are accurate. The Hanabila of the day did not tolerate the Ash'ariyya of the day because of being very different from the Ash'ariyya that we see nowadays, or the majority of the Ash'ariyya that we see nowadays. The Ash'ari madhab went through stages, phases of development. So some of these are actually accurate, some of these are very strange, and you can easily say that they are false, fabricated or so. It's like Ibn Qudama's criticism of al-Ash'ariyya. It's similar to that. Yes? And Ibn Qudama's criticism of al-Ash'ariyya is usually misunderstood by al-Ash'ariyya and by people who object to al-Ash'ariyya, and definitely by the very stupid group of al-Wahhabiyya. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stop them from studying al-ilm, because the sins they gain are much more than the good deeds. Allah musta'an. Yes, thank you. Barakallahu fikum, fikum barakallah, you are welcome. وحفظكم الله والمسلمين. This is an answer I have been needing to hear. Thank you. Marhaban. No problem. Maulana, I have heard some Shaykh that studying ulum hadith is fard kifaya. How much of ulum hadith should a Hanbali study in a week? The whole week. And ulum hadith, I think at this point, ulum hadith should be fard ayn, because the way it has been, ulum hadith reached that point of it's not developing anymore. It's developing slowly, and there is so many things that can be developed there. And if you are convinced that there has to be a Hanbali contribution to ulum hadith, because usually ulum hadith are seen from a Shafi'i lens. Now we have so many other lenses. Yes. From what I've read, the Hanafi contributions to ulum hadith can be great, but we do not have this chance. Why? Because most of the books on the discipline are Shafi'i. Great service to Islam, and we thank them. Jazahumullahu khairan. They did a lot. We explained their books and we rely on them. Any student of knowledge will have to rely on the Shafi'i curriculum. We'll have to study Kitab ibn Salah. We'll have to study Ibn Hajar afterwards. Yes. And we'll have to study before that Ibn al-Mulaqqin, Nawawi, and so many other Shafi'i, great mashayikh of Islam, great Shafi'i scholars. That said, this is not the only thing that can be said there. This is based on a philosophy derived from their aqa'id, their fiqh, their usul, the main principles that govern their madhab. And these are not masail of al-fiqh. Yes? So we will have to allow other insights, other contributions. From this perspective, you being Hanbal, I think now you have fard kifaya, in which al-kifaya, in which al-kifaya has not been fulfilled. صح? Which means that every single person who has the ability to fulfill it is obliged his ayn, this individual in particular, is obliged unless he has an excuse. So the whole week, study, or if the curriculum designed by your Shaykh allows the introduction of ulum al-hadith now, then go study it very quickly. There are certain things that you'll have to study first. There are priorities in order to make the best use of your study of ulum al-hadith. So if it allows, if your time, if your curriculum allows, then you'll have to study now ulum al-hadith every day, if you can. If you can't, then as much as you can. وهكذا. I need to. I listen. Do not write any more questions. Send messages if you want, but no questions, so that I do not keep answering your questions. I will have now to leave after answering these two questions. From, I think this is the Shaykh Zul Qarnayn. I've heard some Mashaykh, and I've already, yes, I've already answered that. Yes, I've already answered that. Yes. So one more question is, I mean, if you want to send more messages, it's fine, but do not send the question. If you want to say, yes, I understand, no, I didn't get that, something like this, it's fine. In other words, stop asking questions. This is enough for tonight. Just to make sure people understand me, I read this book on the Hanafi version of Usul al-Hadith. It was a good book, but this is not criticism. I'm just sharing my observations. It takes a lot from Hanafi books of Usul al-Fiqh. Yes, I was waiting for this scholar to do more analysis, but as if he was restricting himself to a naql, to quoting great Hanafi scholars in their books of Usul al-Fiqh. It's never enough to study Usul al-Hadith from books of Usul al-Fiqh, and I wish I would be able to read more Maliki contributions to the field, especially that I've read some of the explanations by some of the Maliki scholars, and they would give you a hint of what you might find. Yes, there. And I'm not sure if they can develop something like this. Yes. You know, people are usually, students of knowledge, not people, are usually familiar with Shafi'i choices. Things like al-Mursal, the position on al-Mursal. Al-Mursal is categorized as weak. That's it. Actually, you can even revisit what Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said. But you know what? We do not want the headache from Shafi'i, because they will claim the Shafi'i card, and we are the Shafi'iyya. We know better. So let's not go there unless we are ready for this war. صح? But with this headache, So I wish I can read something on the Hanafi and the Maliki. But to be like a critical work, enough of the nuqul. You just quote someone. Where is your analysis? Okay, so this is just something that you put together. This is your contribution. Fine, just make it clear that this is what you're doing in your introduction or so. Enough questions, please. سر الأسرار authentically attributed to Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani with the current matn we have. Is Sir al-Asrar authentically attributed to Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jilani? The matn that we have might have some problems. Might have some problems. Some scholars would say that Sir al-Asrar is not an authentic book that Sidi Abdul Qadir wrote. A lot of Sidi Abdul Qadir's books are in that area. Fortunately, great books like Al-Fath al-Rabbani and Futuh al-Ghayb and other books they are authentically attributed to him. So Sir al-Asrar can be read with a man who is familiar with Sidi Abdul Qadir's ways and Sidi Abdul Qadir's language and Sidi Abdul Qadir's rhetoric. Yes, and then you'll be fine, I think. Thank you. حياكم الله يا فضيلة الشيخ عبد الرحمن. جزاكم الله خيرا يا مولانا الفاضل. اللي هو I think this is ذو القرنين if I remember correctly. جزاكم الله خيرا يا شيخ خروب as well. جزاكم الله خيرا everyone. Remember, next time I will also bring the same manual and we will discuss a little bit about the books, or not the books, this plan of studying al-fiqh, this curriculum of studying al-fiqh. Then I would like to read the introduction of a difficult book here on YouTube, because I will never be able to study this with the students, especially that the students are never interested in literature, and they are not interested because they are not ready. Yes, they show interest in literature, but they are never ready to study seriously something like Al-Masun. Al-Masun, I studied this with the professors that they brought from Al-Azhar University, and he came to Al-Jam' Al-Azhar wearing his suit and his tie, looking like a professor. I mean, esteemed professor, not a Shaykh, not a traditional scholar. Yes, and he would come every dars and he would say, I will tell you what he would say every dars. And we studied Al-Masun, this book in literature, Al-Masun, with him. I'd like to read with you the very first chapter, with the very first bab, the very first part of that book, to talk about, unfortunately, to some of you, fortunately, for me, like a critical introduction to poetry and Arabic literature. Yes, because these are the things that I will ask the students to go and watch, because it's not a dars, so you have the liberty. It's a free country, as if we force them to attend the durus. And I think you might enjoy it if you like literature. And if you do not like literature, how about keeping an open mind? Yeah, how about allowing yourself to accept this thing that you actually need but you do not know? Maybe it inspires you to go and study literature in your language, if you do not speak Arabic, or if you do not know enough Arabic to study Arabic literature, because this will help us a lot, will help the world. Yes, if Al Wahhabiyya study more literature, they will not be Wahhabi. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure that they will be better people, but they might still be stupid with their Wahhabi ways. This is enough. I'm really happy. I would like to repeat that I'm really happy, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure that we spend this time here discussing these things without suffering the well-known stupidity and foolishness. And I'm sure that you understand what I mean by this. Yes, that we would suffer from in other live sessions. Do not tell him. unlike other YouTube people, I will tell you, please do not tell anyone about this. Keep it to yourself. خلاص. Do not hide it, and do not spread it either. صح? Because this is more fruitful this way. Yeah. And I use someone else's poetry when I say, thus let me live unseen, unknown. Okay? بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خيرا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.